Welcome back to my disembodied voice. Now, since time immemorial, humans have been emotional creatures, and that emotion has produced conflict, confrontation, and tragedy. However, as society and humanity evolves, our stress levels, methods of release, and varying facets of emotivity also evolve and add in population density, changes in communication, self-entitlement, and many other things, then it's no surprise that small pockets of rage can erupt out of nowhere with very severe consequences. And there are also times when we are most susceptible to emotivity, such as when we are worried about a loved one, or when we have had the day from hell, or when we are behind the wheel of a car and we are driving a 2-ton weapon that acts both as an extension to our rage and a method to express how we feel via recklessness, loud horn honking, or industrial language, and then mix in worry about a loved one or the day from hell with said vehicle, said rage, and it's no wonder that things get out of hand. And, pardon the pun, being driven to insanity even has a name, and that name will be familiar as, considering it's been all over the news and the front pages, and is called... So join me for today's video as we look at the psychology of road rage and how it's been shown in movies. And, as ever, to delineate the nuance and context of road rage within movies, we will be using a flow-through chart. And today's topics are insane in the brain, the switch, innate personality, go to hell. Oh, and spoiler alerts for today's movies, which are Unhinged, Tailgate, Duel, Joyride. Or, if you're from my country, the United Kingdom, Joyride was called Roadkill, as the word joyride means something quite different in the UK than it does in the US. I'll get to that later. Right then, let's crack on. First of all, what is road rage? Well, according to the English dictionary, road rage is a sudden, violent anger provoked in a motorist by the actions of another driver. Basically, like the name suggests, this is the specific outburst of ire, wrath or anger, specifically when in a vehicle and prompted by someone who is driving another vehicle. So, although you might get into a fight with someone whilst crossing a road, to be in an incident of actual you need to be in a vehicle and driving. And the problem with our limbic systems, temperaments, and general patience is that when we are using so much concentration, restraint, and focus alongside the stress of driving on a busy road, mental fatigue and anxiety can cause some people to turn into boiling kettles of explosive emotivity. And when this is the case, and we mix in our own problems, the bad day we are having, the idiot driver who is hogging the road with a massive truck can suddenly cause us to go... And yes, I don't mean the Cypress Hill song, I mean insane in the brain. Conscious awareness is suppressed, the rational and wise minds are overtaken by the emotional mind, and there is no method of communication between two irate drivers other than expressive anger. Now, drivers make mistakes all the time, like timing things incorrectly or making a last-second turn, and it's pretty easy for those mistakes to be misinterpreted as purposeful acts of aggression. Unfortunately, when a driver makes a mistake, there is no apology or excuse me signal that can be readily understood from the other car. And by contrast, cars provide an environment in which individuals may feel safe to display anonymous hostility. A car gives the motorist power, protection, easy escape, and, much like a keyboard warrior who faces no consequence on the internet, clear anonymity. And there are many reasons why we go from 0 to 100 in terms of anger. Now, in dialectical behavioural therapy, we talk about the wise mind, which is a place between the rational mind and the emotional mind. Now, as this model, Seen here in the Wellness Society diagram shows, the rational mind is all about minimizing, shrugging off, or being the opposite of the emotional mind, which is about being reactive and being impulsive. The wise mind, which is taught in dialectical behavioural therapy, is very much about logic, taking things from multiple perspectives, stepping back, and overviewing the situation with clarity. However, as we are concentrating on the road, it takes a lot to engage the wise mind, and as we're dealing with split-second decisions, we are reliant on letting our rational mind let things go as just one of those things, move on. But, as shown in the Russell Crowe movie Unhinged, sometimes we can stay in the emotional mind and, like any state of arousal or fixated obsession, it's neither healthy nor conducive to dwell within a heightened state of vexation. Now, most people who get cut up or deal with a twit on the road swear, shake their heads, and the rational mind refocuses. However, for road rage, the emotional blood pressure of rage just keeps going up, and the emotional mind stays engaged. For Russell Crowe in Unhinged, like everyone in life, he has multiple things going on in his own private life, and when some woman in a car annoys him with her driving, he confronts her. Now, what he is actually doing is seeking submissiveness and an apology which isn't really going to appease the boiling temperament and also narcissistic wound of another self-entitled person taking the piss out of him and treating him like an idiot like all the people in his private life are. He will not tolerate this. Russell Crowe may well be a sociopath, but with his personal life in tatters, he needs an object of projection and release, and the woman in the car is perfect for that because she is weaker, self-entitled, dismissive, and no matter how much she just tells him to get over it or move on, she merely becomes the object of his fixation and ire, and Russell Crowe remains in the emotional mind. Now, sociopathy and personality aside, because we're going to come to those later, Russell Crowe is a big man with big problems, and he already has people trampling all over him and emasculating him, so in the psychology of road rage, he is very susceptible to the following 6 crucial facets and triggers of stress and frustration. Feeling rushed, running late, and congestion builds tension and contributes to irritability, making drivers prone to aggressive reactions. Perceived anonymity. The feeling of not being personally identifiable on the road lowers inhibitions and encourages aggressive behaviour. Attribution bias. Interpreting other drivers' actions as intentional or hostile can escalate anger and lead to aggressive responses. Displaced anger. Unresolved anger from other aspects of life are expressed through aggressive driving behaviour. Impatience. A low tolerance for delays or perceived inconveniences can lead to frustration and aggressive driving. And finally, personality traits. Individuals with high levels of hostility or low frustration tolerance are more likely to engage in road rage. Russell Crowe's personality isn't truly known at this stage, but he appears to have issues with anger and a low level of distress tolerance, and, exacerbated by his personal problems, his anger is easily displaced, he has no patience, and his attribution bias projects all of his stress, frustration, and ire at a woman who was merely stealing a few yards on the road. Now, was she driving like a dick? Yes, she was. But a quick shout and honk of the horn may have been sufficient, but because Russell Crowe needs to displace his anger and we have aggression mixed with narcissism and rage and male emasculation, he sets about hunting down the bad female driver and begins a slow unwinding of her life with the ultimate view of more than likely killing her or at least doing her a significant level of harm which would match his perceived level of injustice. Basically, he's trying to destroy the object that has hurt him because he wants a commensurate level of punishment for her transgression. Now, like I said before, the majority of times, a quick Honk of the horn and swear word is all it takes. But sometimes, when things go too far, like in the movie Unhinged, we enter the switch. Prefrontal cortex gets suppressed by the temporal lobe, and this can lead to intermittent explosive disorder or extreme emotional reactions which are not commensurate to the situation. The human brain is involved in everything you think, do, and feel, and it's involved in every decision you make while driving. Now, brain imaging work shows that when there is abnormal activity in certain areas of the brain, it may contribute to anger, impulsivity, violent behaviour, and other issues associated with road rage. Something happens to some drivers when they get behind the wheel of a car. A territorial animal comes growling to the surface, and when another driver makes a mistake, they can't just express frustration, call the person a bad name, and continue driving on and getting on with their day. Instead, the anger festers and they get locked into a course of aggressive action, swearing, gesturing, chasing, or harassing the other driver. This is due to trouble with shifting attention. Now, we've seen this in Unhinged with Russell Crowe, but it also happens in Steven Spielberg's debut TV movie, Duel. Now, we don't know anything about the driver in Duel, and that's because the human reveal would diminish the behemoth truck that pursues Dennis Weaver like a Terminator mixed with a metal T-Rex. But once the duel begins and the paranoia and heat sets in, whoever the driver is has no concept of frontal cortex logic. Now, let's take a look at the prefrontal cortex and its functions. As you can see, it's all about insight, empathy, logic, emotional suppression, and morality, and just behind that area is the emotive side of the brain, which is things like the temporal lobes and the limbic system. When we are aroused, our emotive sides take over and a self-preserving switch is activated. It's very primal and it makes sense, as when being attacked by thugs or a wild animal in the old days, why on earth would you ponder the morality or empathise with the situation or the attacker? No, what you need is adrenaline, focus, anger, fight or flight, and the emotive side that drives our body into a reaction. So our brains switch to the limbic system, which is across the frontal, parietal, and the temporal lobe and is located on either side of the brain. The temporal lobes are involved in emotional stability and mood control, among other important processes. And if we are living with this part of our brain on all the time, then we can be angry, paranoid, aggressive, and able to chase someone across America in a giant truck with the view to squishing them just to prove ourselves the winner. Like I said, the retaliation has to be commensurate with the perceived injustice. Brain imaging scans show that when there is abnormal activity in the temporal lobe, it can be associated with excessive temper, aggressive behaviour, emotional outbursts, and violence. And our movies aren't about people who just shout and swear, honk the horn, and drive off. No, our movies are about when the drivers become murderous animals behind the wheel. Also, abnormal activity in the temporal lobes is often seen in people with what we've mentioned before, which is intermittent explosive disorder. Now, in the Diagnostic Statistics Manual Volume 5, intermittent explosive disorder is defined as recurrent, impulsive, problematic outbursts of aggression disproportionate to the situation. Someone cuts you up on the road, you want to destroy them, to own them, to crush them. Is your response commensurate to the perceived injustice? And, even more worryingly, it is thought that intermittent explosive disorder is more common than bipolar and schizophrenia combined. This means there are a lot of people out there who have intermittent explosive disorder. And a study into intermittent explosive disorder found a direct correlation between history of impulsive aggressive behaviour and grey matter volume in the frontolimbic region of the brain, an area which is known to play a central role in the regulation of emotions. Across all the subjects studied, reduced grey matter, which is primarily composed of neuron cell bodies and synapses and is responsible for processing and interpreting information, enabling functions like thought, memory, emotions, sensory input and also muscle control, low grey matter is also directly correlated with increases in aggressive behaviour. And one such area which is crucial in road rage is the anterior cingulate gyrus. The anterior cingulate gyrus and surrounding areas are involved in shifting your attention. When the anterior cingulate gyrus is working, you're able to roll with circumstance. However, if this part of the brain works too hard, there's a tendency to get locked into negative thoughts or behaviours. Are we seeing a pattern yet in our road rage people? Now, the anterior cingulate gyrus helps coordinate information between the left and right hemispheres of the brain, and it works hard in conflict monitoring, error processing, social cognition, pain processing, attention, decision making. And when impacted or overused, the anterior cingulate gyrus can lead to getting stuck on ineffective thoughts and behaviour patterns, argumentativeness, oppositional behaviour, holding on to hurts from the past, excessive worrying. So, both Duel and Unhinged show that we have a clear problem in terms of the antagonist being unable to switch off their brains back into the prefrontal cortex logic or activate the wise mind or even the rational mind. It's also worth mentioning that we know very little about the antagonists in our movies. Well, we know bits about Russell Crowe, which are defined in brief statements and broad strokes, but overall, in all of our movies, their frame of reference and histories are both opaque and nebulous, but, as cited above, problems in the anterior cingulate gyrus can cause someone to hold on to the past, and when we mix biological problems with social problems and then throw in temperaments and egos, they all mix together to make someone a true cauldron of toxic properties that, added to the weapon of being in a car or a truck, is going to make someone a truly lethal opponent. But sometimes brain activity alone, no matter the faults in the anterior cingulate gyrus, is only part of the problem. And so we come to innate personality, the pattern of characteristics across the whole matrix of the persona. Ah yes, our old friend personality. Now, like I have said before, your personality is your psychological immune system and a blueprint of how your cognition works and is then projected through your frame of reference. It's how you interact with the world, respond to the world, defend yourself in the world, get upset by the world. Now, Russell Crowe shows poor impulse control, recklessness, and a lack of empathy for a woman and a child. The child is crucial in Unhinged because it shows how little of a damn he gives towards a vulnerable infant. And in Roadkill, which, like I said before, was named Joyride in the US, but as the word joyride in the UK denotes the crime of stealing a vehicle and driving it illegally, hence the name change, the antagonist is a severely sociopathic and narcissistic truck driver called Rusty Nail. Now, Rusty Nail is a proper movie sociopath, as, after being made fun of on a CB radio by the late and great Paul Walker, he systematically hunts down the trio of teens and humiliates, berates, and then tries to kill them. Now, we know Rusty Nail is a sociopath because when tricked into a motel room by the kids to confront a stranger, he rips the stranger's jaw clean off with his bare hands. Unable to let go of his emotive thinking, exploding intermittently and having a huge road rage problem, explosive rage also being a problem in sociopath, as I've discussed in videos before, Rusty Nail fixates on the kids and does not let up. And his personality is all about acting out, avenging perceived persecution, and being unable to let go of the prank which started it all, and like all our other drivers before, his retaliation is not commensurate with the perceived injustice. So, with Rusty Nail's unchecked ego, his need for superiority, narcissistic pride, and male genital one-upmanship, my vehicle is bigger than yours, Rusty Nail doesn't have the will or wherewithal to try and cure himself, and, even under the threat of an injury, crash, an arrest, or a lawsuit, he continues to go after these kids, terrorising them, kidnapping them, trying to torture them with the ultimate aim of killing them. Rusty Nail suffers from "it's the other driver's fault" syndrome. Now, Paul Walker and his mates were being dicks and deserved to be brought down a peg or two, but this could have been done with a commensurate response. Perspective is an important part of road rage prevention too. You are you, the other driver is the other driver, and only you can let someone ruin your day and push your hot buttons. Focus on being relentlessly positive and realise you can't control, coerce, or fix other people. You can only manage you. Try and practice a bit of kindness, starting with yourself. Personality, ego, and pride, and many other facets of our mental immunity cause massive problems and only add to brain issues and intermittent explosive disorder when we are focused on the people, projecting rather than rationalising, stopping, and thinking about ourselves first. In other words, letting something that's happened go and moving on. Finally, we come to the resolution of all of this, which has two ways: an apology or letting it go, but more often than not results in go to hell. The option for an apology is not taken, and when the contrition does finally come, it's too late for the antagonist and the other driver must now suffer. In low-budget movie Tailgate, the antagonist is a pesticide-peddling vermin killer who has immense issues with narcissism, an entrenched negative personality, clear problems with his frame of reference, and a penchant for intermittent rage as he goes about his business. When cut up by another driver, again who has children, so we show the lack of empathy from his near psychopathic outlook, he, tailgates them to a service station. It's there that he offers the driver a chance to repent, apologise, and be the bigger man. However, when the other driver refuses, the pesticide man offers him one final option: make the apology now or pay the price. Naturally, the other driver tells him to go forth and multiply, and so begins a chase where, if caught, is going to end with the family dying from the man's pesticide, which has a truly grim reaction with human skin. More Terminator temperament of numb inevitability than rage, his sheer determination to track the family across the country is the reason for the entry here, and with a personality of pure narcissism and antisocial traits, no empathy, and a brain truly switched from prefrontal cortex to limbic system focus of wrath and ire, Pesticide Man is like a chemical spraying Grim Reaper who believes he is in the right by offering the chance for penitence or the option of death by skin melting chemicals. But it's the fact that his psychopathy is triggered by road rage, bad drivers, and the inability to move on from someone cutting him up that shows there must be some clear PTSD on the road which has made him like this. Rusty Nail also offers the kids the chance to apologise in Roadkill/Joyride, which he is also told to go to hell, and when the apology does come, much like in Tailgate, things are too far gone for the antagonist's twisted morality to accept, and a price of death must now be paid. Even in Unhinged, Russell Crowe pulls alongside the young lady and demands answers, respect and contrition, but whilst not being told to literally go to hell, the dismissive deal with it attitude merely fires him up. So between the brain, the switch, the personality, the psychology, and even the social problems we are all suffering through but others don't have privy to, alongside the proxemics of crowded roads and the sheer entitlement of other drivers, the heat, the frustration, and all these other things, it's no wonder that road rage makes for such a compelling movie topic. For some road ragers, it's about a need for control, to counter other drivers who they feel violate their proxemic space, or it's a need for possession of their lane or part of the road. For others, it's unchecked anger and aggression. It's a hormone-based, primitive, small-brain thinking, bringing a lack of emotional intelligence and the need to dominate someone and their unshareable space. It's also a need to bring justice, to punish, to destroy, to give a reaction which isn't commensurate to the perceived crime. Either way, I hope you've learned something today and enjoyed our deep dive into... Anyway, that's it for this week's video, so remember that psychology is cool. Please like, share and subscribe, as more subs means more vids, and even leave a comment or start a discussion, as healthy debate is always welcome on here. And as ever, until next time, I'll catch you later.